Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. And this time, we're going all in on motivation,
Oh,
unlocking that peak motivation
yeah.
in work, in hobbies, in everything you can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And, we always like to ground these deep dives in something really specific.
For sure.
So today we are going to be taking a cue from James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Okay. Love that book.
Yeah, it's a great one. And specifically, there is a chapter in there called the Goldilocks Rule, how to stay motivated in life and work.
Oh, interesting.
And right away, I think we all kind of get what that means. Like, that feeling of,
Yeah.
that's right.
That sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're going to be after today.
I love it.
So to kind of illustrate this a little bit better, there's this really fascinating story about Steve Martin that I thought we could start off with.
Okay. Yeah, I know a little bit about him, but fill me in.
So before he was, the comedy legend that we all know and love,
Right.
a young Steve Martin, still really honing his craft,
Yeah.
he was working at Disneyland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Not on a stage,
Oh, wow.
but selling guidebooks.
What?
Yeah, so he had this little booth set up and he would sell guidebooks, and to keep the crowds entertained, he would throw in magic tricks.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know, and it's so interesting to think this was, obviously years before.
Yeah, before he made it big.
He was a huge star. Yeah, exactly. And it's just so cool to think that this was like the groundwork,
Yeah.
for all of his future success.
So he kind of started small and then just built up and up.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And what's even more interesting is that when he did finally start, doing stand-up,
Okay.
he didn't just jump in and expect to nail hour-long sets right away.
Right.
He actually started super small
Oh, wow.
with just a few minutes of material.
Yeah, that's smart.
And he would just gradually build up his act over time.
Okay.
So he was constantly, tweaking it, adding new bits,
Yeah.
just always kind of keeping himself engaged in the process.
So he was living the Goldilocks rule before it even had a name.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's exactly what he was doing. And I just thought that was such a perfect illustration of this idea
Yeah.
that, we're most motivated when we're working on things that are right on the edge of our current abilities.
Right. So not too hard that you just give up, but not too easy that you get bored.
Exactly. Not too hard, not too easy.
Yeah.
That's where that Goldilocks zone is.
Yeah. I like that.
And this actually has a really solid basis in psychology.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it's called the Yerkes-Dodson law.
Okay. I've definitely heard of that, but I don't really know what it means.
So basically it describes how our performance peaks at an optimal level of arousal.
Okay. I need a visual for this one.
I know, me too. It's a little bit-
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around
Yeah.
if you're not super familiar with it. So imagine a bell curve. Okay.
Okay.
So at the very bottom of the bell curve, you have low arousal, think boredom.
Okay, yeah.
And then at the very top, you have high arousal. So that's where anxiety and stress come in.
Oh.
And then peak performance, that sweet spot that we're talking about, is right in the middle.
So it's like the peak of the bell curve.
Exactly.
Okay.
So too little challenge and you're bored, unmotivated,
Okay.
just kind of ball. But too much challenge and you get overwhelmed and you just want to quit.
So finding that Goldilocks zone is about walking that tightrope
Yes.
on the peak of the bell curve.
Just stay right at the top.
Okay, this makes a lot more sense now.
Good.
But I'm curious about how we actually translate this into, real life.
Yeah. Good question.
Because it's easy to see how it works for someone like Steve Martin, building his act.
Right. He's got a clear goal. He
Yeah.
can tweak it.
Exactly. But what about for our everyday tasks and goals?
Right. The stuff we have to do every day.
Yeah, how do we apply the Goldilocks rule to that?
Yeah. That's the $1 million question, right?
Right.
And you know what's so interesting is that the biggest threat to actually achieving those goals might surprise you.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
It's not necessarily failure,
Okay.
but boredom.
Oh, that's interesting.
So think about it. How many times have you started something with a ton of enthusiasm
Oh, all the time.
and then you just kind of lose interest a few weeks later?
Yeah. It's like the initial excitement fades.
Yeah, totally.
And then suddenly that new project or hobby or whatever it is just feels like a chore.
Exactly. And that's because as humans, we are wired to crave novelty.
Oh, that makes sense.
New experiences, new challenges, new information.
We need that to keep us going.
Yeah, we need that dopamine hit
Yeah.
that comes with something new and exciting.
So when things become routine, that spark just fades.
Exactly. It fizzles out.
So is the secret to constantly be jumping from one new thing to the next?
That's what it feels like sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But not necessarily.
Okay, good. Because I don't think I had the energy for that.
Yeah, me neither.
So what's the secret then? How do we keep that spark alive?
Well, the chapter goes into some really fascinating examples of how we can actually incorporate novelty without having to abandon everything we're working on.
Okay, so like, how do we do that?
So think about video games for a second.
Okay.
They keep you hooked because they're constantly introducing new challenges and levels,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
You're always leveling up, you're always getting something new.
But how do we apply, like, video game thinking to real life?
Right, because it's not like our work projects magically level up every week.
Exactly.
And that's where this concept of variable rewards comes in.
It's variable rewards.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, it's a super powerful tool for keeping things interesting and, boosting your motivation.
Okay, let's dive into that.
Let's do it. Okay,
All right.
so think about it. Like, this variable rewards are those unexpected wins that just kind of keep you on your toes.
Okay.
The chapter actually uses this example of slot machines.
Okay.
And, slot machines are designed to keep people hooked
Right.
by delivering those unpredictable payouts.
I'm not a gambler, but I get the concept, like the thrill of the unknown.
Exactly.
You never know when you're going to win, so you just keep playing and playing.
Totally. And all that unpredictability that's going on,
Yeah.
it triggers this huge surge of dopamine in the brain.
Okay.
And dopamine is like a key player in our reward and motivation system.
So that's what keeps us coming back for more.
Exactly. And it's the same principle behind, mobile games that offer those random rewards.
Right.
Or even those social media notifications that keep us scrolling and scrolling.
Oh, so it's like the element of surprise
Yeah.
that keeps us engaged, even if the reward itself isn't really that significant.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the downside here.
Yeah, it can be a little manipulative, right?
Yeah, like we're being played by these systems.
Yeah, it's designed to keep us hooked,
Wow.
even when the rewards themselves might not actually be beneficial for us in the long run.
Okay, so how do we use this to our advantage then?
Well, that's the key, right?
Yeah.
It's about being aware of how variable rewards work so you can use them intentionally.
Instead of letting them use us.
Exactly. Instead of letting yourself get hooked on that endless social media scroll, what if you built variable rewards into your own goals and habits?
Okay, that's a really good point. I like that.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of how I would do that?
Yeah, for sure. So let's say you're trying to establish a writing habit.
All right.
So maybe you reward yourself with a special treat or activity after you hit a certain word count.
Okay.
But you don't always choose the same reward.
Oh, I see.
Sometimes it's a fancy coffee.
Okay.
Sometimes it's an episode of your favorite show.
No.
Sometimes it's a relaxing bath.
Yeah.
Mixing it up keeps it interesting and keeps you motivated.
So it's like building a mini game out of your goals.
Exactly. Gamify it.
I love that.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. There are days when even the promise of a variable reward isn't enough.
Well, for sure.
What about those times when motivation is just gone?
Yeah. We all have those days.
And I'm just like, I don't want to do anything.
Totally.
So what do we do then?
Well, that's where this concept of the professional comes in.
Okay. But you're not talking about like having a fancy job title, right?
No, not at all.
Okay, good, because I don't have one of those.
Me neither.
So what is it about then?
It's about recognizing that showing up and doing the work even when you don't feel like it is what separates those who achieve their goals from those who don't.
So it's all about discipline,
Yeah.
consistency,
Yeah.
showing up even when that motivation muscle is taking a day off.
Exactly. Professionals have a system. They stick to a schedule and they push through that initial resistance even when there are a million other things they'd rather be doing.
It's so much easier to just stay on the couch.
Oh, yeah. Way easier. But the book actually tells this great story about a really successful baseball coach
Okay.
who really emphasized this to his players.
Okay.
He'd always tell them, some days you're going to have to put your head down and do it, even if you don't feel like it.
Okay. So it's not always about feeling motivated.
Nope.
It's about acting
Yeah.
despite the lack of motivation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how do we develop that kind of like mental toughness?
Yeah, that's a tough part, right?
Yeah, because sometimes that couch is just calling my name.
It's so cozy.
It is.
Well, it all starts with recognizing that motivation often follows action.
Okay.
So the chapter highlights that just starting, even in a small way, can be enough to spark that motivation and get you going.
So sometimes the hardest part is just taking that first step.
Usually.
Yeah. And then once you get over that hurdle, things start to feel a little bit less daunting.
For sure. It's like that old saying, well, begun is half done.
Yeah.
Get started. And that motivation often catches up.
Okay. I like that. And there's this quote from the author David Kane
Yeah.
that really stuck with me. He says, professionals take action, even when the mood isn't right. They might not enjoy it, but they find a way to put the reps in.
That's so good.
I know, right? And it's so true.
Yeah, that's the essence of professionalism, showing up consistently, regardless of how you feel in the moment.
Okay, so I've got finding that Goldilocks zone,
Yes.
sprinkling in some novelty and variable rewards,
Keep it interesting.
and then cultivating that professional mindset of consistency.
Over fleeting feelings.
Yes, this is like a recipe for sustainable motivation.
It is.
I love it.
And remember, it's not about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about making small, consistent efforts over time.
So even tiny improvements, when you do them consistently over weeks or months,
Yeah.
they can lead to huge results.
Exactly. It's the compound effect in action.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching my goals now.
That's awesome.
But before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to our listener.
Yeah. Good idea.
How can they put all of this into practice?
Well, it all starts with finding your own Goldilocks zone.
Okay.
So think about a habit or the task that you've been putting off.
Okay.
Something that feels either too hard or too boring.
I think we all have a few of those.
Exactly. We all have a few of those lurking back there somewhere.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, what small adjustment could you make to bring that task into your Goldilocks zone?
Okay.
How can you tweak it to make it just challenging enough to be engaging, but not so overwhelming that you just want to quit?
It's like finding that just right porridge, like in the actual Goldilocks story.
Exactly.
Not too hot, not too cold.
You got it.
And I think this idea of making small adjustments really resonates with me because instead of getting paralyzed by the enormity of a goal,
Right.
we can just focus on those like manageable tweaks that keep us moving forward.
Totally. And don't forget about the power of novelty and variable rewards.
Oh, yeah.
How can you add like an element of surprise to your routine? Maybe change up your study location, try a new recipe, or reward yourself with an unexpected outing after you hit a milestone.
It's all about keeping things fresh, keeping that motivation engine running. This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how motivation works and how to actually make it work for me.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, this is just a glimpse into what James Clear covers in his book, Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah.
I highly recommend checking it out for a deeper exploration of habit formation and the power of small changes.
Absolutely. It's going on my reading list. And to our listener, I hope you found this deep dive as illuminating as I have. Remember, finding your Goldilocks zone is a journey, not a destination. Keep experimenting, keep tweaking, and keep striving for that just right level of challenge in all areas of your life. Until next time, happy diving.